Rain clawed the eaves. Fog clung to the lane like wool to a thorn. And yet the flame above the inn door burned upright, calm, golden, unblinking, as if the storm were only a rumor, and glass could choose whom it favored. Villagers froze mid-whisper. A traveler with rain in his hair and stubbornness in his jaw watched the glow as though it had just learned his name.
Rowan dropped his pack hard to convince the floor and himself that wood, flame, and weather still obeyed the old rules. Faulty wick, he said, as if the word could unspell the omen. Best not to look long, the innkeep murmured, polishing a cup to the bone. Gaze too deep, and the light remembers you. Light doesn't remember, Rowan said. People do. Badly. Not here, said the elder by the hearth. He was small and old enough to have outlived several names for winter. Smoke braided his shoulders. Fog nosed the threshold like a dog that remembered being let in. His peat green eyes studied Rowan with the restraint of a man who had watched courage break its own ankles. You crossed Ashen Bridge after dark, the elder said. Most who try turn back or don't call what they do living. I didn't come to be turned. Rowan inventoried the room like a reluctant priest. 2 soaked hunters, a spindle-hipped woman with hands that could cut thread or throats without changing tempo, a boy pretending not to listen. The village had no name anyone would speak. The forest at its hem had too many. The elder nodded at the backroom key. If you leave at dawn. The forest forgets the sun less easily than we do. Poetic, Rowan said. The forest doesn't take compliments, the elder replied, nor criticism. A gust bowed the inside lanterns in perfect unison. Outside, the unkillable flame purred, steady as a vow. Rowan told himself he'd come for stone and inscription, the rumored reliquary buried beneath the trees, its carvings older than the empire that had once taxed language itself. He told himself fear was the cleverest lie a place could tell. He tried to sleep. The whispering began. It moved beneath the boards, poured through the latch seam, gathered at the hinge where darkness thickened like honey. He could call it wind. He could call it the house settling. But when it drew breath, it smelled like hot metal and wet ash. Rowan, it said, smooth as a blade leaving a sheath. He sat up so fast the bed coughed dust. A small figure stood in the doorway, barefoot, nightshirt gray at the hem, eyes bright in the wrong way. Lantern bright, without reflection. You left the door unlatched, the child said mildly. It prefers not to be, here. It? Rowan gripped for skepticism and found it damp. The door, the child said. They like to come easily. They? The ones who fed the lanterns. The child tilted his head. I'm Bran. Meet the elder at dawn. If you want to step into the forest and not be chewed, I'm not being chewed by trees. They're not the chewing part. The door shut itself politely. Sleep took Rowan like a debt collecting. He dreamed of a grove of hanging glass, each flame a mouth with small, neat teeth. At dawn, the fog was a pale muscle around the hollow. The lantern above the inn still burned, untroubled by weather or reason. A small group gathered by Ashen Bridge. The 2 hunters, the spindle woman, Bran in bare feet, and the elder with a staff capped in a skull, hollowed for salt. Don't eat in there, the elder said, pressing the staff on Rowan. Don't drink. If you bleed, let it fall on stone, not roots. If a lantern stays lit when it shouldn't, speak a name you love and keep it alive with breath until the flame lowers its head. And if that fails, then you run, the elder said. But the forest is older than your legs. They crossed the bridge, a confession of rope and slick planks stretched over a dark throat of river. Trees waited beyond, tall as verdicts, wearing fog as a shawl. The path did not welcome, it tolerated. Rowan heard the hum before he saw the first lantern, a thin, articulate vibration at the edge of hearing, like glass thinking. There it sat on a fallen trunk, no wick, no oil, a small disciplined blue that made its own night. Don't kneel to it, the spindle woman said when one hunter bent. It likes that. Whose is it? Rowan asked. No one's, the elder said. Everyone's. They hold what we begged for and wouldn't pay. Spared sons, returning harvests, a death delayed. The forest is a miser. It keeps everything. A red scarf tied in an elegant knot around a birch was the first sign of the missing. Footprints tracked 20 paces and ended as if the earth had folded its mouth. Sometimes it leaves gifts for itself, the elder said. By noon, or whatever passed for it beneath that blind canopy, they reached the standing stones. 7 teeth in a curve, script peeled off by deliberate hands. Bran went still, as if snuffed. They're saying a name. What name? Rowan asked. Yours, Bran said. Fog poured. Lanterns brightened like cats opening their eyes. A boy too young to fear properly disappeared between one breath and the next. A hunter, leaking scar on his lip, shouted, "John!" and ran. The path jumped and returned him far away without moving. The elder pressed Rowan's name into the stone in a language rubbed to corners, and the lanterns dimmed to a resentful hiss. "Paid for now," the elder said. "We go." Rowan did not argue. Terror isn't loud, it's efficient. Back in his room, his hands shook as if something older than him were trying them on. Bran appeared in the doorway again. "You saw," the child said. "I saw a forest that loves debt." Bran nodded. "I was a promise they couldn't keep. They fed me to a lantern to make the hunger smaller. It made the appetite larger." Rowan didn't like any question that would answer that. That night, over a map older than ash, lines like veins, lanterns marked as small suns, the elder said, "We go to the Reliquary at first light." They entered when the fog was the color of milk, and the crows had decided not to spend their cries. As they went deeper, the lanterns changed. Their glass thickened as if asked to hold heavier stories. Their flames twisted into shapes that were not flames at all. Fingers, teeth, sometimes an ear, as if listening had sculpted them. "Why did you stay?" Rowan asked one, appalled at himself even as he spoke. It answered with warmth, hearth heat brushing his face, chest, hands. Forgiveness before confession, comfort before cost. He hated it instantly, and because he did, he understood. It gives first, asks later. "Don't," the elder warned. "It learns your preferences faster than your name." The Reliquary waited in a clearing like a removed ribcage. Columns ringed a sunken mosaic floor, designs the color of orchard memory, shapes like rivers with opinions, branches with grudges, eyes with too many lids. At the heart stood a black glass lantern tall as a man, vein like stone learning to be a vein. It was lit with dark light. The eye corrected and failed, again and again. "It should not be burning," the elder whispered. It burned. The floor's central rectangle, door without hinges, bore a long crack like a closed eye. As Rowan stepped near, the chamber drew breath. He heard oppressive voices. His father's old claim that light is a contract. A seamstress's apprentice whose red scarf had been tied too neatly to be an accident. A boy saying a word too short to be a plea and too long to be a breath. "There," Bran said. "A mouth." "We opened it once," the elder said. "It ate the man who suggested it." Not quickly. "Why am I here?" Rowan asked, exhausted by pretense. "To be punished for doubt?" "Because you have the kind of arrogance that forgets to be afraid," the elder said. "We need that." "It makes doors." "It keeps them open," Bran added. The crack widened without moving. Old cold stepped through. The sort that keeps a secret because the secret uglies its shape. Something rose. Not a creature so much as a decision to be seen. Eyes opened where they would be most useful, each a black flame. Rowan remembered the instruction. If a lantern stays lit when it shouldn't, speak a name you love. Keep it alive with breath. He had one polished in his pocket like a coin hoarded for a bribe he swore he'd never pay. "Ellis," he said. The eyes turned. The great lantern's dark fire bowed, almost courteous. "Paid," Bran whispered, frost on the word. "What did you pay?" Rowan hissed. "Time," Bran said. "We breathe for them. That's why they never die." "He is not a child," the elder said, pity shaped like a knife. "He's a lantern that learned to walk." The floor's shadow reached for the elder's foot. His bones answered with a clatter kept strictly private by skin. Rowan stepped between. It felt like a spine being forged from the bones of his scoffing. "Names!" the elder gasped. Give it names! Rowan poured out what he'd kept against hunger. Ellis, Lark, his mother, a teacher who refused to laugh when he loved old words, a little dog with a bark too big for its mouth. Each left him like a tooth pulled without blood. Hurt and relief married badly. The eyes blinked. The shadow thinned. That's what it wants, Bran said. Light shaped like a person. Rowan saw it. The lanterns weren't fire and glass. They were breath-bound into shape. Warmth stolen from vows and memories, fed back as light until the debtor forgot what he owed. Stop, the elder said. Let it ask. The voice came through Rowan's mouth, borrowed and heavy as a river's patience. Give me the names you promised. The elder set a stoppered jar on the mosaic. A faint glow lived in the glass, the way winter kitchens remember warmth. The first promise I broke, he said. I told my brother I'd share bread. I lied. He died next winter. Hunger speaks too many dialects. The floor warmed, steam lifted. The room smelled like forgiveness that still had questions. Paid, the voice said through Rowan. The spindle woman cut her palm and bled on stone, not roots. I promised not to freight his name with anger and wore it like a knife. Paid, said the voice, pleased like a landlord counting rent. The hunters added small, fierce things. An acorn from a felled tree promised safety. A wooden bead from a pilgrimage traded for dice. A curl of hair. Each offering turned the chamber's temperature by a degree of mercy. Bran, the elder said gently. Bran looked at the great lantern the way prayer looks at the person praying. They promised to remember me, he said, and did by refusing to say my name. I am what you made, but I am not what you want anymore. The eyes flared. The reliquary leaned in. You are mine, the voice said, almost fond. The lanterns outside inhaled. Rowan rebuilt around a new spine, put both hands on Bran's shoulders. Take me, he said. I breathe brighter. That's the first true thing you've said here, the elder muttered, weeping tidily. No, Bran said, and the word rang like a bell clever enough to summon its own church. The great lantern bowed, then bristled. I won't let you. You fed for years. You learned to walk because I walked. Learn to starve. He took Rowan's hands, pressed them to his chest. Heat and cold braided. Breathe, Bran said. For me, not for it. Rowan breathed like a man rereading the fine print. With each breath, the hum shifted. Hesitant, then wild, then unanimous. The lanterns listened. The great lantern dimmed, confused, like a bully finding its audience laughing together instead of alone. The elder spoke the peeled language with new words grafted on, the corners learning to be letters again. The spindle woman spun air into a white cord and looped it around the lantern like a sash of truce. The hunters stood with their mouths open like men surprised by a wedding. Return what you took in the name of hunger, the elder said. Keep what was given in the name of love. The eyes shuddered. One opened, sly and small, and watched a beetle cross mosaic as if the sight were a lesson. The great lantern guttered. It should have died. It did not. It steadied and lowered its head. Paid, the voice said softer. Enough. The crack did not close. It softened. The shadow withdrew. Something complicated happened to the fog. It brightened without admitting the sun. They did not run. They walked with the dignity of people who had not won and had not lost, but recognized the shape of the contest. At the standing stones, Jon stood blinking, hands muddy with the honest work of surviving. He didn't know why he cried. The lichen-scarred hunter did, and held his shoulders harder than necessary because love is clumsy when it lives. They should have left then and called it mercy, but debts do not end neatly. They fray. On the path back, a lantern swung without wind. Its flame made the shape of an ear. It's listening, Bran said. To what? Rowan asked, though he knew. To the promises we're making right now. They reached the bridge at dusk. The village set bowls of salt on sills. The elder slept a day and woke with his bones rearranged to hurt less. The spindle woman laughed once in the lane, and the sound startled crows into remembering they were birds. Hunters taught Jon knots that refused to untie for the wrong voice. Rowan tried to write. His ink learned to hesitate. How do you footnote a hunger? How do you cite a light that asks for your breath? That night the inn's lantern guttered and, for the first time in years, went out of its own will. The innkeep stood beneath it and cried, embarrassed in a tidy way. The elder laughed. The lantern relit itself, smaller, humbler. Rowan dreamed he was walking the Reliquary with no lanterns lit at all. He expected relief and found instead a grief shaped like an empty shelf. Dawn. Bran at the door. It's not finished. What is? What we paid with your names. It tasted and wants a feast. We starved it, Rowan said. We taught it how, Bran said. That's different. They went back, Rowan, Bran, the elder, the spindle woman. The forest, offended, braided a new path, narrow and root-veined. They followed the hum to a lantern that had grown clever. Its flame took Rowan's face in the glass and wore it badly. Mouth a fraction too wide, eyes too sure. It's practicing you, Bran said. Say your name. Rowan did. The lantern lowered its head. The mimicry stuttered. Further in, they found a ring of lanterns around a clearing of bones, too small to be deer and too stubborn to be sheep. The flames moved with Rowan's breathing. He held it. They held. He exhaled. They praised him with brightness. They've linked to you, the elder said. A leash can pull both ways. Rowan felt a terrible, clean idea land. If his breath kept them, his refusal might teach them dark. He held his breath until the world narrowed to a drill bit's point. The lanterns dimmed, flickered, guttered. Easy, Bran said, touching Rowan's wrist. Don't trade one death for a lesson. Rowan inhaled. The lanterns brightened, but not as much, as though they'd learned embarrassment. They returned to the Reliquary and did something no one had dared. They spoke names into the room not as payment, but as story. No bargains, no jars, no bleeding. Lark's hands kneading bread, Ellis choking a laugh on river water, the teacher's eyebrows staging patience, the dog's ridiculous bark. The chamber warmed as if an old house accepted new occupants. The great lantern watched, unwilling to admit curiosity. When they finished, its dark fire bowed again, not in defeat, but in the grudging posture of something learning manners. Paid, it said then, almost inaudible. Heard. No bells rang in the hollow. Bread steamed on doorsteps like kind, practical ghosts. The elder slept like a man who'd been carrying a church and set it down. The spindle woman whistled a rude tune at a raven, and the bird laughed, which is not a thing birds do. The hunters learned to speak softly to snares, so they closed only on hunger that wouldn't become a habit. Rowan packed. He had pages to write that would not stain with footnotes. He had learned that some ledgers belonged to breath. You're leaving, Bran said, for now. If the light wants you where I am, you'll see me before you need me, Bran said. Not threat or promise, just weather. At Ashenbridge, fog curled and uncurled its fingers, undecided whether to wave. Rowan crossed without looking back and camped where the road remembered how to fork. He watched his lantern gutter, die and, without wind or oil, relight as if a boy's hand had flared in greeting and become ordinary fire again. Not now, Rowan said, smiling at the dark. Let me pretend I'm alone. The night, generous, pretended with him. In the hollow, the inn lantern went out at dawn and stayed out until someone laughed kindly at it. Then it blushed and relit in a smaller key. At the forest's edge, Bran touched the first tree and said a word he had never been allowed. Mine. The forest did not agree, but it did not say no. In the Reliquary, the great lantern bowed and raised its dark head the way kings do when a treaty teaches them a better kind of power. One eye opened below to watch a beetle cross the mosaic, and for the first time felt mercy like a small, embarrassing weight it might like to carry. Far away in towns that had never heard of the Hollow, a dozen ordinary lanterns flickered in unison, as if glass elsewhere had caught a whisper shaped like gratitude. They steadied. They did not die, and when fog makes a fist in your lane, and the wind forgets its job and a lantern above your door refuses to gutter, don't stare. Tell a name you love into the glass. Breathe for it, not into it. Teach it to listen. Teach it to lower its head.